methods are an important discussion related to the previous goals established about science, whether we're talking about a social science or a physical science. The goals are still the same, and you're trying to explain phenomena, you're trying to focus on the empirical things that you can observe. And again, that involves removing your own value judgments from things. And a lot of times we're testing these three major explanations against one another by gathering data. And the three major explanations, again, are rational, material, institutional, and ideational. And so we use our scientific methods, or really what we would call tools, different tools to identify, collect, and interpret evidence. And this is usually large amounts of evidence that we apply systematic tools to analyze them and then to interpret what that means in terms of what causes certain phenomena, what types of patterns do you see emerging from data that you collect. So a good part of the science is about organizing evidence and putting everything into a format that you can then test with maybe a statistical analysis tool or some of the qualitative observational tools that are also relevant in political science. There are three major classes of methods that are used to analyze political and social behavior. The first is quantitative methods, and within quantitative methods, we focus on looking at correlations between data and cross-case patterns. We're usually looking at a large number or a large N of observations, sometimes hundreds of thousands of observations. And in the process of doing this, we attempt to develop generalizations where we can understand how things move in a very general way among the masses of people. Qualitative methods are usually better suited for explaining individual behavior or maybe one or two cases of historical importance. A lot of times qualitative methods give you the rich, detailed explanations for causes that is not necessarily available in quantitative methodology. And then the third, and probably least often used, although their use is increasing in political science, would be artificial environments. And this is the use of experiments, simulations, and game theory. Game theory is a theoretical decision-making predictor, and it basically is most often used in economics, but it has been applied in international relations as well. Experiments often fall into what we would call a pseudo-experiment, and this means that we are not actually placing people in a laboratory. Usually we are observing regular people and manipulating one or two features of their environment and then observing what happens. It is difficult to do an actual experiment. So we do field experiments or pseudo experiments. Again, the more common type of study that you see published is quantitative or qualitative methodology. So this graphic, this table 1, 2, comes from your text, and it really does a good job of breaking down the strengths and weaknesses of each of these different methods. So really, if someone were to ask you what is the best method for studying political science, the proper answer to that is it depends. It depends on what question you're actually asking. If you're wanting to find out what the general education level is of people who vote Democrat, then a quantitative analysis is fine. If you want to find out why individual people make the decision to vote Democrat as opposed to Republican, you probably need qualitative methodology to get beneath the surface and find out why they make the decisions that they make. Artificial environments also offer their own trade-offs and their own issues. There are some ethical issues you have to consider when you do artificial environments that you don't necessarily have to worry about with quantitative methods, for example. But again, it really depends on what it is you're trying to explain, how much you're trying to explain. You should also be aware that if you go for quantitative methodology and you know that, you want to describe general trends in behavior, you're going to be limited somewhat in how much you can actually say about that behavior. Again, you can look at statistics and determine that people of a certain demographic vote for this party or another party, but you can't actually, with that data, tell why that occurs. So keeping this in mind helps us be more flexible and actually how we take in information, but also in just being aware that there is so much data for political science, for human behavior in general, that we need to be open to it all and find and always constantly developing these tools to better how we evaluate this data. And science is never actually a case of having proven anything. We build on science as we go, so we can always disprove anything that we have found today. So science being a cumulative process means that these things are always developing, and that's another reason to always keep an open mind as we move through this. So to conclude, we'll talk about the different subfields within political science, and in this introductory course we will cover all of these major subfields. The first is comparative politics. In general, this covers domestic politics, the institutions that comprise local government, but not just that. It also includes the social and economic facts about particular societies. So we look at politics within countries and we make comparisons across different cases. So we do develop some sort of regional orientation. That's why I'm a comparativist, but I also do Latin American politics. In international relations, the focus is really at the highest level of government that there could be. You're looking at the international system and relationships between countries. So the international system then becomes less about what's happening at the domestic level, less to do with society, and more to do with decisions that are made at the very highest levels of government and between states, but also international organizations and international government. Political theory is the political philosophical underpinning of the study. There is some history involved, but that we'll talk about that in the very next class, where we really talk about the origins of the discussion of what is the best type of government, how should rulers behave, how should people in society, how are citizens formed, and what is their responsibility. All of these kind of very existential questions that begin to be asked that formulate kind of the logic or the rationale for doing this as a study to begin with. And then we study political institutions of American politics. This usually takes a very similar format to comparative politics, where we look at the domestic workings within American politics. And then finally, there's public administration, which kind of applies across all of these subfields, but also is about how theories of government work and practice. So there's some overlap with political science, but then there's a whole other set of theories related to how organizations work and how, different choices there play out. So it's more of a praxis, the joining of practice and theory. So this concludes the very first class of this course, and thanks for sticking with me through the end. And the future videos will be a little briefer. Thanks a lot.